But now we're to Ocarina of Time. This is many people's favorite Zelda game. This is many people's favorite game, period, is Ocarina of Time. Ocarina of Time, as I made it clear, Majora's Mask was the first Zelda game I really got into. Ocarina of Time, I, as a kid, was really uncomfortable with the Jabu Jabu Belly dungeon, and so I always made like a friend do it for me back then. And then I'd get to the adult Link section and spawning in Temple of Time every time and having to run through the Redeads was just a lot for young little me's minds, which is ironic because I love Majora's Mask several years later and it was darker. But Ocarina of Time, just at the time I couldn't appreciate it. Like, obviously after Majora's Mask I went back and I played it way more, but it didn't have that special place of nostalgia for me as much as Majora's Mask. Ocarina of Time is technically, like in all technical aspects, an amazing game that has aged great. It is possibly the best aging Zelda game, and it will never, I don't think it'll, like, the most that can be bad about it is we'll slowly find the graphics more primitive by comparison to our modern graphics. But all of that, like, a remake could fix all of that. And overall, the game, it's a great game. It's a game I love enough that I'm planning to do an Ocarina of Time randomizer race with people. And it is probably it's a game that I personally, if I was going 100% based off of subjective, that I'd put it in A rank. But because I want to factor in objective reasoning too, it's an S rank game. Because S rank, or like objectively, it's just a phenomenal game. Then there's the Ocarina of Time Master Quest that got released on GameCube that I believe was originally Japan only on the Nintendo 64. But on the GameCube, they released as a pre-order bonus for Wind Waker, possibly the best pre-order bonus in the history of pre-order bonuses. Like, if you think I'm wrong, let me know. Comment if it's in the YouTube, or let me know in the chat. Yes, I won, Son. Welcome. But like in my eyes, I'm not sure if you can beat a pre-order bonus, the pre-order bonus of Wind Waker, that was a disc of 4 games just for pre-ordering a game. Like, you could cancel pre-orders and they don't make you give back the pre-order bonus, because that was given the day you pre-ordered. And you would get Legend of Zelda, Legend of Zelda 2, which is the Adventure Link, Ocarina of Time, along with Master Quest, and Majora's Mask. So that's almost 5 games, really. What version of Ocarina of Time you have yet to beat? Yeah. So like, there was such an amazing pre-order bonus. So that being said, already, this is a game that many people got for free, which now would not be easy to get for free because you'd have to buy it from somebody who's collected it over the years. But Master Quest is Ocarina of Time, but the dungeons are remixed. They're remixed kind of hideously, but it gives a new challenge. Like, it doesn't look good, the remix of like random boulders and weird places, and it's weird. It feels like this weird mirror dimension, but if you love Ocarina of Time and want something new, it's probably worth playing. Also, in my opinion, you could just play a randomizer and get a similar experience, because it's mainly just remixing stuff. Oh, hey Maple. Yeah, thank you. Yep, we beat the Majora's Mask randomized. It went pretty smoothly. We finished in like an hour and a half of stream. And you should play the Switch version first of what? Of Ocarina of Time? But yeah, Master Quest I mean, I have to, because it includes both Master Quest and the original, I guess technically I have to put it above Ocarina of Time. Because, like, it's the same thing but more. But yeah, I mean, it's very slightly above there. Master Quest is only for people who've played Ocarina of Time a lot. Remaster helps a lot. Yeah, I heard it does, the remaster for The Faces of Evil. Yeah, Master Quest is good. Then we have Ocarina of Time 3D. And you just got done with trashing Majora's Mask 3D so much, so I bet you know what to expect with Ocarina of Time 3D. But if you expect that, you're wrong. Ocarina of Time 3D really took nothing away from Ocarina of Time. It added so many quality of life features. Once again, Gyro is the biggest one for me. But it added a bunch of quality of life features. It looks beautiful. It didn't really take away any sort of like aesthetics or motifs that matter that much. It didn't really heavily change any fights, anything that could worsen the game. Like, Ocarina of Time, the reason I was so excited for Majora's Mask 3D is because I played Ocarina of Time 3D, and I was like, oh, it's going to be a better Majora's Mask. And it wasn't, but this is the best way to play Ocarina of Time if you have access to it. Yeah, Silver. Ocarina of Time 3D stayed in its lane, and for that is better. Yeah. It didn't try to do anything different, drastic, and that's why it's so good. Like, you don't mess with something that's a classic. If it's not broke, don't fix it, kind of thing. And they did that with 3D, and that's great. 3D is the best way. It is indeed the best version, Maple. I agree. Getting that in 64 ones out of the way, now we're to Oracle of Ages and Oracle of Seasons, which are grouped together, interestingly enough, because I would probably rated them slightly separate places, but that's fine. The Oracle games are another one that, like Majora's Mask, kind of has a mixed reception. They were the first Capcom, or the first Zelda games made by Capcom, and they very much took inspiration from Link's Awakening in so many ways, but they were two games that were, you at first sound like it's a Pokemon Red, Pokemon Blue situation, but it's really not. They're two entirely different games that happen to be able to link up, and if you beat one and then use the code from it in the next one, you can continue the story in the next one. You get access to a bunch of codes to go back and forth to unlock more stuff to get even better, and you have tougher fights, a tougher final boss, and then you can proceed to go do that back to the first version again, so you can play the tougher version of the first version again. And it's great. I love it. It's so unique. It has really great items, really great worlds. None of them take place in Hyrule, and they all have really great world building. I particularly love the character Rosa. She's one of my favorite characters in the Zelda franchise. I'll do that review in a second, Maple. When I get to Twilight Princess. Okay, I'll do it when I get to Twilight Princess. Aside from ZD's every Zelda you played. I mean, there's one of the Tingle games is down here that I haven't played. But yeah, the Oracle games, they do a lot unique. They feel kind of experimental, even though they're also very much in the pattern of Link's Awakening. And I don't know, I really want them to get remakes. Preferably on one disc now, because like you'd be paying $60 instead of $30 twice. But I put so much time into them back in the day. They are great games. The main difference I'll say about Ocarina of Time is more focused on puzzles. Slightly more focused on puzzles, while Ocarina of Seasons is slightly more focused on combat. And because of that, I would actually put Oracles of Time, Oracle of Ages. Did I say time? How many times did I say that? Oracle of Ages I'd put slightly above Oracle of Seasons, but they are both S-rank Zeldas. They are my favorite 2D Zeldas. In fact, I love them more than the Ocarina games. Like, I have to let my, even though I try to use subjective or objective, I try to be objective at some parts. Subjectivity for my favorite games kind of can overrule that. These are my favorite 3D Zelda and my favorite 2D Zelda, so they're being at the top of the list for me. Once I wanted to do a Zelda marathon, he stopped at my favorite. Yeah, but when I get to the Twilight Princess, I'll do that review. I have a few more games before then. Looks like the next is Phantom Hourglass. Phantom Hourglass actually, I wouldn't even say it's a divisive Zelda. I'd say it's, by many, it's considered a bad Zelda. Like, Phantom Hourglass gets a lot of hate. And okay, it's not one of the best Zeldas out there. I don't think it's as bad as people make it out to be. I get the main complaint. The main complaint is there's a central dungeon that you have to go through repeatedly. At different parts of the story, you have to come back through it. There are shortcuts to get through it quicker. And you only go through it, less than half a dozen times, right? It wasn't a super memorable game for me, but I enjoyed it when I played it. I didn't love the stylus controls. That was a thing with both DS Zelda games. But that was alright. I don't think it's a horrible game. That being said, it's still a C tier game for me. But it's not like F tier like some people would put it. It is a game that someday I actually want to replay someday. That day's not today, but someday. It'll be like Temple of the Ocean King. It has redeeming points of the game that are fun, and so it's not an F tier for me. Unlike Tingle's Rosy Ruby Land, which had no moment of fun. And if you're 100%ing Majora's Mask, like for the first time, I absolutely recommend a guide. Don't do that without a guide. I used a guide first time. I used a guide probably the first couple times because I had the guide. But like I can do that off the top of my head now. Skyward Sword. I guess this order's so weird. We're not doing the other 3DS one yet. Well, or the other DS one, right? Yeah. Skyward Sword. Skyward Sword came out on the Wii originally. It's another game that was divisive. I wouldn't say it was hated by most people. I'd say it was divisive. I'd say the fan base was pretty split on it. And it actually got a remake on Switch, which I strongly recommend to people that didn't like the motion controls of the original, because that was the main gripe people had with the original, and it fixes that. It still has some of the gripes. My biggest gripe with Skyward Sword is the sky. You explore the sky like you explore the sea in Wind Waker, but the sky is almost nothing in it. The game's really interesting. It takes place way before all the other Zelda games, before Hyrule even exists. It does kind of repeat going through areas a couple times, and I don't like... A lot of people hate the repeated boss fights against the Imprisoned, which I actually don't mind. I more of don't like the repeated boss fights with Girahim, because when I fight Girahim, I feel like I was cheated out of a cool dungeon boss that uses the dungeon item and is themed to the dungeon. But overall, it has Fi, my second favorite Zelda partner after Tattle. The dungeon designs are some of the best. Like, you have to be... I understand if you have gripes with this game, you have to be out of your mind to think it doesn't have some amazing dungeon designs. Ancient Cistern is beautiful. It has this creepy underground part. The above ground are just so pretty. And it has like an amazing boss fight. The Sand Sea. You get to be in like a future boat on the ocean. Like there's some really cool dungeons in Skyward Sword. Well, I actually think there were a lot of interesting characters, Maple. I loved the characters of Skyward Sword. And yeah, I enjoyed the motion controls personally, but I understand why people don't like them. But I love the character. I love Fee. I love Girahim. Demise is interesting. You don't see it much. I love that version of Zelda. That's probably one of my favorite versions of Zelda. And I just so much... She might be my favorite version of Zelda. I so much wish we could get some sort of game of her point of view of her journey that she went on in that game. Because she went on her own journey. That Sheik, that is the best version of Sheik. I don't care what you say. Or not Sheik, Impa, sorry. That's the best version of Impa. Like, that version of Impa kicks so much butt. And, like... I just love all the side characters too. The girl that works at the storage box counter on the in Skyland. Sorry, my brain's blanking. Skyloft. She like I felt horrible. Like I didn't want to break her heart. Like there's so many characters that I loved the characters of the Skyward Sword. Skyward Sword, I have, like I said, I have gripes about them. I have a few gripes about the game. But overall, it is a high A tier game for me. Like, it is above everything else right now for me on A tier. And it's almost into S tier. Like, if you ask me on a certain day, I might even put it in S tier. I love Skyward Sword. I bought the amiibo. I bought the Joy-Cons. Yeah, they're interesting characters in Skyloft. Yeah, exactly. Plus, I love the new races they introduced. The Kikwi, they were so... so funny. So, like, you feel bad for them. Like, I love the little robots. Like, the mole people are the only ones that I'm not big on. But, like, I love the Kikwi. I love the little weird seahorse octopus things. Like, I love the race designs of that game. They're so quirky. They have some of... Once again, the mole people are the boring ones. I don't care about them. But all the others, they're like my favorite one. Plus, I love the dragons. The dragons are all so cool. I can gush about Skyward Sword a lot. It's, as I said, on certain days, I would put it in my S tier. And I'm very tempted already right now to bump it up to S tier, but I'm going to leave it there for now. Okay, Spirit Tracks. Spirit Tracks is the second DS Zelda game, and well, I think it kind of got mixed reception when it came out. The fan base has really grown to love Spirit Tracks. It still has the same controls issue. That was one of my gripes of Phantom Hourglass. I'm not a big fan of the DS controls with the stylus, but it's a fun little unique... It has good music. It has a fun little unique train thing that is probably more fun than the ocean thing in Phantom Hourglass. And, like, it has Lineback, or Lineback's descendant. I don't know. It's fun. It's honestly still a C tier for me, but above Phantom Hourglass. It's a game I'd like to replay, but I don't plan to anytime soon. Okay, well, let's just move on to Minish Cap. So, as I said, the Oracle games are Capcom's first Zelda games. Well, Minish Cap is Capcom's last Zelda games. They only made those 3 games. So, Minish Cap is the last one. It kind of follows similar patterns of all the other handheld Zeldas up to that point, but with cute cel-shaded graphics. It is the game that Four Swords and the original Four Swords that they kind of used, that was kind of testing the sprites and stuff. Like it's for, as I said about Link to the Past and Game Boy Advance, that was kind of to tie the people over while Minish Cap was in the works. Minish Cap, I don't know. I feel like the fan base is kind of split on it, mostly positive. Personally, I love Minish Cap. I loved all the Capcom Zelda games. I think they did great. I think that at this point in time, since we're not really getting 2D Zeldas, that they should just give that to let Capcom make 2D Zeldas. I think Capcom did great with 2D Zeldas. And Minish Cap, I love the Kinstone mechanic. It's kind of RNG a little collecting them, but it's not too bad. It just has little secrets hidden everywhere, and it has the one thing I don't love is the figurine collection. If you want to do 100%, that's very grindy. But everything else, my only other real gripe of the game is I wish it was longer. It has like 4 dungeons and then the final dungeon. It's one of the shorter Zelda games, but it's fun. The little shrinking mechanic, the lore added, the backstory for Vati. I wish they'd bring back Vati. As I said, there's so many games with Ganondorf and Ganon. I wish they would use the other villains more, and Vati is one of them. Though Vati's at least been enough that I'm satisfied. Like, there's Majora, I feel like they really need to use again. That said, Minish Cap is an A-rank Zelda game for me. It would be below Skyward Sword, but probably above everything else in A-rank. I love Minish Cap. And if we get Game Boy Advance, Game of the NSO, I really look forward to another excuse to replay that game again. Okay, Wind Waker. Wind Waker's a game that was panned at release, but I believe the fanbase more or less loves it now. The reason it was panned at release, in fact, wasn't even its fault. It was on the GameCube, and the GameCube, when it was like first shown off, they're showing off like tech demos and stuff, where they showed off a realistic looking Zelda game. Man, you can drink water. They showed off a realistic looking Zelda game, and then like a couple of years later, they showed off they announced the new Zelda game coming to Wind Waker, and that was not a realistic looking Zelda game. When I say realistic, I mean like realistic proportions, like following Ocarina of Time style but better graphics. And because it wasn't that, people got upset and they were like, why is it a cartoon? And personally, at the time, I thought it was dumb, or I thought that was dumb that people are upset about that. I was like, this looks cool, this looks cute, this looks colorful, I like this. I didn't dislike the idea of a darker Zelda, as you know, I loved Majora's Mask, but I don't need every game to be dark. And I was like, I like what they're going for with Wind Waker, and I really loved how expressive Link was. And that was part of the reason they went with cel shaded, was they could be more expressive at the time when the graphic capabilities of the GameCube made it harder to have expressive, realistic faces. And so one of the things Wind Waker got kind of, to this day still is kind of criticized for, is traveling the sea is kind of time consuming. Also, there is very clearly cut content. Like, the pacing is kind of bad. They already confirmed by now, long ago now, that there was cut content to the game. And you could even initially playing it, you can tell where the cut content is. The second arc of the game goes too fast. There's two little mini dungeons that felt like they probably should have been full dungeons. Hey there, Dragon, welcome. You'll have to catch the VOD. I talked about a lot. But yeah, Wind Waker overall, though, despite the pacing, Wind Waker is an A-rank game for me. I would put it... Where would I put this? Probably roughly in the middle of A-rank here. I love a lot of things about it. I love the characters. I love the Tingles. This is like the worst version of Tingle. But the worst is in like, he's possibly evil. But yeah, this tier list, I have a lot of A tiers. I just noticed I put a lot on A tier. but it's a series I love. So, uh, but yeah, okay. So Wind Waker HD. Wind Waker HD was the Wii U remake of Wind Waker, and it was a remake we needed. It added the Swift Sail was the main thing worth noting, which made sailing faster. You moved at a faster speed, and the wind always stayed behind you. And that, yeah, you have to watch about it as soon as you can, Dragon. I'll also probably actually get it on YouTube early, like next week, like maybe in a few days, 2 or 3 days. But yeah, Swift Sail, like I already loved Wind Waker, but Swift Sail fixed one of my only qualms with the game, other than the only other one being the cut content, and they didn't fix that, but they also fixed the money grinding part and made it less grindy, which, fair, that was many people's qualms of the game. It wasn't for me because I play Zelda games for 100% completion and I had plenty of money from all the chests. But if you're not playing for 100% completion, it's very tedious grinding, and so I acknowledge that was a positive change. Wind Waker HD, I would put right about there. Right about there. It bumped it up a little more, and that's once again for me that exclusively from the Swift Sail. The Swift Sail did that much of a difference for a game that I already loved. Zelda is a quality series, yeah. Okay, now we're at Triforce Sword, and now I get to admit a guilty pleasure. I like Triforce Heroes. I like Triforce Heroes. Triforce Heroes, it came out in the 3DS. It's a multiplayer Zelda like 4 Swords, but 3 players instead of 4. Single player is worse than ever. 4 Swords single player is doable. Triforce Heroes, it's single player is a chore and painful. Don't play this game for single player. In fact, if you can, you need to play this game with friends. I played through the whole game with 2 friends. And that is why part of the reason I loved it so much. It was a great experience with friends. I loved the crafting outfits and being able to mix match different outfits for different buffs and stuff. I loved the puzzle solving. The teamwork puzzle solving was stronger than ever. Like, 4 Swords has puzzle solving. Triforce Heroes has way more puzzle solving. And even the bosses really take advantage of the 3-character aspect. I kind of agree, Dragon, that doesn't deserve to be a guilty pleasure, but unfortunately it is, and the reason is Zelda is a single-player series, and a large portion of the fan base play them as single-player games. They do not play Zelda multiplayer. They maybe don't have enough friends to play Zelda multiplayer. They maybe just don't want to do that. They want to be able to just play them on their own. And Triforce Heroes absolutely is awful single player. If I was rating it purely on single player, I would put it in F tier. It is awful single player. But it is great multiplayer. And then the other problem is that a lot of people played multiplayer with randos, and the chat system is pretty atrocious. I did do the DLC or whatever, the update expansion, that challenge I did with randos. And it was hard with that communication, but it felt satisfying at the end that we managed to make that communication work. And the 3 of us stayed in that, after clearing it, we stayed in that lobby for like 5 to 10 minutes. Like, I'm not even exaggerating, literally 5 to 10 minutes after clearing it. Just spamming cheers and other things, and just like enjoying this weird connection we had, that we have like 80 emotes, managed to get through this tough challenge with them, and the bittersweet knowledge that the second we left that lobby, we would never interact with each other again. We don't know who each other are. We had this weird bond that I don't know who these people are. I'll never see them again. I don't know who they are. I don't know where they are. I don't know what state or country they live in. I don't know whether what gender they are, what age they are. I don't know who I played that with. But it was this. That being said, that's not me standing up for the suboptimal chat system, despite it making that weird moment that we had this connection. Like, overall, that's one of the few things I'd say it needed was a better chat system. The other was somehow to make single player fun. And my worry there is that would make it so people just wouldn't play it online. And the better word for, like, the optimal way is to play it online. And that's what I like about it. Triforce Heroes, it's not an S rank game, but it's definitely A rank for me. I loved it. I loved it more than Four Swords Adventures. I'm actually putting it... I'll put it below Wind Waker because any higher and I'll be sad that I might never play through it again because my only chance to play... I need 2 other people to play through it again if I want to do that. And that's not super likely. And it's a shame. It's a game I'd love... It's a Zelda game I would love to replay at any point in time. But I don't know if I'll get to. But we are now at Twilight Princess. And Maple said to wait till we got to Twilight Princess to redeem their review requested, which was the 4th dungeon. Okay, you mean you mean Arbiter's Grounds. Arbiter's Grounds. Oh man, you picked a good one. Arbiter's Grounds is, in my opinion, arguably one of the best dungeons in the franchise. It is probably in my top 5. Like, it would take time in itself for me to try to actually determine what my top 5 are and what order they're in and stuff. But there is like a 95% chance that Arbiter's Ground would make the top 5. Arbiter's Ground is very cool. It's out of the dark undead dungeon types that they do in Zelda games, like the Shadow Temple in Ocarina, or the I'd say kind of Ikana's Castle, Majora. Wind Waker has the Earth Temple. Like, out of the dark undead dungeons, it is the best. It's creepy, but not quite horror creepy, but like it's just unsettling. You can tell that some bad stuff happened here, that it was probably used for torture. I think that in lore, it was indeed used for torture. It was like a prison that they used for torture, which is the same excuse for Shadow Temple. But Shadow Temple is kind of has a gross, grungy feel to me. Arbiter's Ground, I feel like Indiana Jones exploring a crypt. Like, or like not a crypt, a tomb. Like, it's already a really cool dungeon when you get into it, and the Re-Dead Knights in it, while not nearly as scary to me as original Re-Deads because the scream's not as loud, they're very unsettling, their movement, and the dungeon just gets better when you get the item. Is that the location where Ganon was being held in the story? Likely, because he was executed at the top of Arbiter's Grounds. So, executions absolutely 100% happened there. Though executions there were sending them to the Twilight Realm, which was it's a weird way of executing. It's kind of an exile execution. I don't know. What the Twilight Realm is a whole conversation in itself. But yeah, the dungeon also gets even better once you get the item in there, the spinner, which is once again one of my favorite items in the series, and the biggest crime about it is that it's super underutilized in Twilight Princess. Once you get out of the Arbiter's Ground, you barely use it. But in the Arbiter's Ground, it's so fun. It lets you just ride around on walls. And not to mention Arbiter's Ground, once again, even the boss is like one of the best bosses in the game. This giant skeleton that you ride along the walls to like jump off and smash into its spine to break its vertebrae. And after you do all that, the second phase, because every boss in Twilight Princess has a second phase. The second phase, you fight its floating head as you jump off wall to wall, going up around trying to hit it. It's every moment of Arbiter's Ground is great, and that's why I say it's definitely in my top 5. There was never a moment in the game in that dungeon that I was having fun, and it's one of the highest points of the game for me. When I get like every time I play to it, I very much look forward to it because it's better, especially because the 3 dungeons before it like are nowhere near as cool as that is. The dungeons after it are also really great, but like, yeah, the second phase is so intense. I love it. So yeah, but my rating for that dungeon is a 10 out of 10. I would give a 10 out of 10 to Arbiter's Ground, and I try not to be too generous with the 10 out of 10s, but like, you picked one of my favorites. As for Twilight Princess itself, Twilight Princess was a GameCube Zelda game that came out at the end of Collection of Boss Fights in Twilight Princess. The boss fights and the dungeons. I mean, like I said, the first 3 dungeons are kind of eh. But every dungeon after the first 3 I feel is very good. The bosses are really good, and it has some of my favorite items. The double claw shot is the only item I think that probably beats the spinner for me in that game. But the single claw shot's meh, but the double claw shot is so fun. But yeah, Twilight Princess came out on the GameCube at the end of its lifespan. In fact, like Twilight Princess, like Breath of the Wild, they simultaneously released it on the filing system on the Wii. And at the time, I thought the Wii was kind of the definitive edition because of the motion controls. But really, the motion controls are tacked on, and the entire game is mirrored, and the GameCube's the definitive edition, at least at the time. Oh yeah, they're both versions on here. So I actually... I have to be honest then. The GameCube version I haven't technically played. So we'll put the GameCube version I haven't played, but the Wii version is the one I got. I got it with my Wii. The Wii version I got, and I think that one was the GameCube that I put there. Yeah, because usually they do the newer ones first. The Wii version was the same game with some tacked on motion controls, and the entire world was flipped solely so that Link would be right-handed without reworking anything in the game. Literally, they flipped the entire world just to make Link right-handed, because most players using motion controls would be right-handed. Which, I mean, for one, the motion controls weren't one-to-one, so whether he was right-handed should have been completely irrelevant. But wow, what a drastic solution for a minor, pretty much non-existent problem. That being said, I enjoyed it. For me, it was a great way to start off my Wii experience. It was a great launch title for that. I do want to recount one brief story of launch day when I got Twilight Princess, and I got to the I was in the very beginning of the game, and I had to go it was before the first dungeon even, and it was where you first get it was before the first dungeon when you have to go save like a monkey or something and a child, and you go through the woods, and there's a series of tiny little like platforms that you're supposed to jump across when you're back there as a wolf, with simply button commands to jump from place to place. But I didn't know that was a thing. So I got to that spot, and I spent, I'm pretty sure, an hour and a half as Link trying to platform, certain there was something up there. But I had to do very precise platforming. I was so mad when I found out, like, not even an hour later in the game that you come back through as wolf, and that's just for the wolf path. But I spent like an hour and a half trying to jump from platform to platform. It was a big dumb moment for Shad. But yeah. So overall though, I mean, I'm only putting the GameCube version on haven't played out of technicality, because it's more or less the same game, even though it's technically the definitive version out of the two. The Wii version, though, it's an A rank game. I should have so many A rank games. God. I still like Wind Waker more, but I'd put it above Breath of the Wild for me. The wolf commands weren't intuitive there. They didn't tell me that I was gonna have a wolf command that just jumps me up there. I thought this was like, oh, I need to get this item up here. It's really tough, so I might as well just do it now. Why save it for later if it's just gonna be tough either way? That was... But okay, Twilight Princess HD. On the GameCube, after Wind Waker HD... Or not the GameCube, the Wii U. After Wind Waker HD, they were, I guess, like, we want to do more quick ports to the Wii U because the system's not making us a lot of money and we don't want to invest long-term stuff in it, but we gotta keep making games. So they ported Twilight Princess. Twilight Princess didn't need the port, or didn't need the changes badly as Wind Waker needed the Swift Sail. But they added the stamps in, which are now irrelevant because there's no Miiverse. What else? They used the GameCube one as a base, so me having never played the GameCube one was super disoriented because suddenly the world was reversed for me. And I was like, why is the desert on the left side of the map and not the right? Why is... I was like, kept getting confused and lost. But I won't fault the game for that. That was, if anything, if I had to fault any game for that, that would be the Wii version's fault, because it's the one that tried to be different. The Switch version, or the Wii U version, otherwise... I mean, the Wii U could already play Wii games, so it wasn't super relevant, but it had some nice, just for the Billion Dark Siders, God, don't remind me. But yeah, it had some nice changes. The being able to play on the gamepad is always a positive for me, and it's a game I wouldn't mind having on Switch just to be able to play on the go entirely. The changes though weren't as drastic as Wind Waker, and I would honestly not put it, I'd only put it barely higher than the Wii one. You're Smeckledorfed. I was Smeckledorfed. Okay. Man, we've been going at this tier list for a while, almost 2 hours. We're almost done though. Okay, we're now on OG Legend of Zelda. I don't know how people are gonna feel about my opinion here. I think Legend of Zelda, the original, aged very poorly. It's a classic for a reason. It started an amazing franchise, and given the technology of the NES, did it probably as well as that could be done. It was impressive at its time. It started like a genre of games pretty much. There's like entire styles copying Zelda, so like it definitely did good at what it did. I would, for any new fans, like I've had a couple people that have asked me what Zelda games they should start with, and I absolutely say 100% always do not start with Zelda 1, because Zelda 1, it's very confusing, it's very unfairly challenging, and a lot looks very similar. Dungeons don't look very different. It starts to feel samey. It's also kind of being an NES game. Stuff like hitboxes are kind of harsh. There's a lot of kind of painfully strict stuff in the game to just product of its time. I absolutely would love if Zelda 1 got some sort of remaster from the ground up, like maybe even make it 3D. But if you want to make it, keep it 2D, but make it like 2.5D, so 3D models. But like heavily change things, give dungeons their own unique looks, give items more uses, rework the map in a lot of ways. Like you can make something really cool out of it now, but the game itself didn't age well, I don't think. And I'm going to be harsh enough to give it a D tier. There we go. It's still above Hyrule Warriors Legends because Hyrule Warriors Legends is a technical mess. Well, Zelda just aged poorly. And now Zelda 2, also an NES game. I mean, it didn't age great, but there is no Zelda experience like Zelda 2, and I actually love Zelda 2's style. I love the side-scrolling RPG kind of feel. It's like an RPG platformer, and there was an Adventure Time game on DS. Hey Ace King, why'd you steal our garbage? Which was like an homage to The Adventure of Link. It was a Zelda 2 style game, and I loved that. I love Zelda 2. I wish Zelda 2 would get some sort of remake or a new game in that style, though I'd also still like a remake, because Zelda 2, despite me loving it, it's very punishing, it's very unapproachable. For new players, I would never recommend going to Zelda 2 unless you're already developed enough of a love of the Zelda franchise that if Zelda 2 is too rough on you, you don't hold it against the series. But for any Zelda fan, it's probably worth trying. I'd recommend save states for most people, because it is very punishing. It is very punishing. But there's still a lot I love about it, and honestly, it's an A tier. Yeah, another A tier game for me. Probably about there. Do I want it above Link's Awakening entirely? No, I want it above Link's Awakening entirely. Actually, I like it even more than any of the Link's Awakening. In Dragon, you asked where Okami would be on this list. Okami would be an S tier, where it belongs. Okami would be right below Majora's Mask. It would be the second highest thing on this list. Okami is... Would it be? Yeah, no, it probably would be. Okami is definitely an S tier game. It would be an S tier Zelda game. It's... I probably love Zelda as a series more, but I think I love Okami more than most Zelda games taken on their own. Okami is a masterpiece. Okay, so this next one, we're back to Tingle. Tingle's Balloon Fight DS. Another Japanese exclusive. This one's even more exclusive. It was a Club Nintendo Japanese exclusive. You could only get it from Club Nintendo in Japan. And it was the second Tingle game. It was after Rosy Ruby Land, but before Balloon Trip of Love. And it's kind of basically Balloon Fight from the NES. It has some differences, but it's Balloon Fight. It has its own modes and stuff, but it's Balloon Fight. And unfortunately, though, though I would want to give Japanese exclusive Club Nintendo, aka never seen it at all. Yeah, I know about it because I'm a Tingle fan. Although, probably a lot of Zelda fans know about it, but as a Tingle fan especially, I know about it. Unlike Balloon Triple Love, I never cared if it would get localized, and I would probably put it in like D tier, but I should be honest and put haven't played, because technically I haven't played. I'm not a fan of Balloon Fight though, so like I probably wouldn't rate it high. And we just have one left, and I think that's another one of the CDI games, isn't that? I need to. Yeah, that is missing one of those. It only has two of the CDI games. Which one is this? Wanda Gamelon. Yeah, that's Wanda Gamelon. It's interesting that they have the CDI games, but they don't have Zelda's Adventure. They have 2 out of 3 CDI games. This list is otherwise like the completely comprehensive list of Zelda games. Outside of virtual console releases, it has every release of every Zelda game except for Zelda's Adventure. Even though, like, I wouldn't count the CDI games anyways. Never played Twilight Princess. That's the GameCube Twilight Princess. They have 3 versions of Twilight Princess on this list. I never technically played the GameCube one. I played the Wii and the Wii U HD version. And when I noticed that, I was like, well, technically I haven't played the GameCube one, so I guess technically that one haven't played. It's gonna, which I'm sure when I post this to like Twitter and stuff, I'm gonna get people that are like, you've never played Twilight Princess? I'll be like, no, I just never played the GameCube one. The other ones are up there in A tier. It's a technicality, but if they have 3 versions of the game, like, it wouldn't make sense for me to put all 3 in there when I haven't played one of the versions. No crossbow training? Crossbow training's here on B tier. It's the top of B tier. I gave a whole little thing where I love crossbow training. I had a lot of fun in crossbow training. Every moment I played of crossbow training, I enjoyed, and I never didn't have fun with it. Like, it wasn't a traditional Zelda game. It was like arcade style light gun game, but I loved getting high scores in it, and I wish we could get another crossbow training game for like 10 or 20 bucks. Watch this in the second screen means a box out or smaller. Fair, yeah. Yeah, it is hard to see, but yeah, that's Link's crossbow training at B tier. I'll obviously, like I always do, I'll post the list to Discord and Twitter after I've done. But the final list here, Wanda Gamelon. Enough chatting. That's haven't played. Haven't played any of the CDI games. Zelda's Lullaby, if it was properly here, would also be in the haven't played. Is there any other Zelda games this game is missing? I don't think so. I think it has every Zelda, every spin-off Zelda. Wasn't there Tetris Trackers that was Japan only? Oh, I haven't played it. What's the tier list on the Discord? Yeah, I will. Inheritance. I'll be posting it on the Discord, as long as a blank one for people to fill if they want. I think though this is complete. I think this is every Zelda game on every platform. Like, I'm trying drastically to search my mind for anything that might be missed. It doesn't have virtual consoles, but I guess those are straight up emulations. So yeah, overall, you can tell I really love Zelda. There's a lot of A ranks. Very A rank heavy, but I mean, it was one of my favorite series. Thank you, Dragon, for requesting it.